It's Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. The swamp's gonna swamp. Trump was right again, and my favorite rendition of my favorite Christmas carol next on the AM Update. There is a fight going on, or maybe a fake fight going on in Congress right now about an omnibus bill, not just a continuing resolution to fund the government, but an omnibus bill taking place right now in Congress. There is, of course, the usual cast of characters having the usual sorts of fights that probably will go nowhere. But why is this happening right now? I want to go back 3 months ago. Here's Congressman Thomas Massie predicting this exact moment.
I also predicted this would fall right before Christmas, and I believe this does fall on December 20th. Now, why have we picked December 20th? Because it's the same reason we always have December 20th. Everybody up here is human. There are no AIs or robots in Congress. And when you get to December 20th, you're 5 days from Christmas. You're 4 days from Christmas Eve. And you desperately want to be there with your family. So this is when the leadership here has the maximum influence. And again, I'm talking to the Democrats and the Republicans, because you've seen it on the Democrat side of the aisle. They love to pick the week before Christmas for this showdown because you can smell the jet fuel fumes over at DCA. It smells like Christmas, that you're going to get to go home and open presents. I've been in HC5 when literally the Speaker of the House, not the Speaker we have now, walks in and says, if you vote for this, you can go home and unwrap presents with your kids. And if you don't vote for this, you're going to spend Christmas here with Nancy Pelosi.
So that is Thomas Massie back on September 23rd, predicting this omnibus funding fight in D.C. So what exactly is the sticking point? Here's Congressman Chip Roy yesterday morning talking about just what this bill does or doesn't accomplish.
And the conference needs to decide whether we're actually serious about spending. And they talk about, well, we got to do mandatory spending reform and bend the curve. But we just voted on a $200 billion shift of dollars in Social Security that's going to shorten the time when Social Security expires or goes bankrupt. We're just fundamentally unserious about spending. And as long as you got a blank check, you can't shrink government. If you can't shrink government, you can't live free.
That's Congressman Chip Roy talking about what the omnibus bill they are debating. Although that, as of now, it wasn't until later last night that the actual text of the bill was released so members could look at it or try to read it before they vote on it. I think voting is set to go down later this week. What I saw yesterday is that the bill is 1,700 pages long. 1,700 pages long. That's what I saw yesterday. And these congressmen and women are supposed to read all of that and make a decision on what they do and do not like about the bill. What a congressional hell this is. But it's an evergreen tweet. This is yet another reminder that really there's not going to be any long-lasting reforms in this country at the national level until Congress is reformed, because it is just a cesspool. Oh, surprise, surprise, Donald Trump was right again. Here's this report from Fox News. I'm old enough to remember when the media said this was just a hoax perpetrated by MAGA.
Okay, Aurora, Colorado now. This is a live look now. The sun is up there in that state, and police have now detained 14 people and reported armed home invasion. That's the same apartment complex where a lot of people were complaining about the armed Venezuelan gang members roaming the halls. Reports indicate that investigators said that several suspects entered the apartment and had two people inside. The suspects then reportedly moved the victims to another apartment complex, or rather another unit on the property where police said they were found threatened and bound.
14 people arrested. 14 people arrested. At an armed home invasion in Aurora, Colorado, the exact same complex where they were armed Venezuelan gang members. You'll remember, I believe it was between J.D. Vance and Martha Raddatz, if I want to say, from ABC News back during the campaign, where Martha said, well, it's just one apartment complex where these violent illegals have taken over. That's not a big deal. Man, Good stuff. Good stuff. And now 14 people, and there were others in the media, of course, if you'll remember, that said, well, it's just a huge hoax. We don't have marauding illegals taking over apartment complexes. Well, there you go. 14 people arrested at the very same apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado that set off that aforementioned firestorm during the campaign. Speaking of the campaign, Kamala Harris is already trying to rehab her image. Rumor has it she wants to run for California governor in 26 and then for president again in 28.
And I ask you to remember the context in which you exist. Yeah, I did that.
We're never getting rid of her, are we?
Hi, my name's Bet.
And now here's this. A poll found 41% of adults under the age of 30 consider the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson acceptable. More than the 40% in that demographic who consider it unacceptable. Anger over the health insurance companies has been in the spotlight after Thompson was fatally assassinated December 4th in New York City. Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, was arrested last week in Pennsylvania and faces charges in Thompson's killing. The survey from Emerson College polling found 68% of all respondents found the action of the person who shot and killed Thompson unacceptable, but a startling 24% of those aged 18 to 29 found it, quote, somewhat acceptable, and 17% of that group found it completely acceptable. The kids are not all right. Here's some good news. Disney has just removed a quote-unquote transgender storyline from its upcoming Pixar series, Win or Lose. They cited respect for parents as the decision. The company said in a statement to The Hollywood Reporter, quote, when it comes to animated content for a younger audience, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline. So, good job, Disney. That's not good enough. We need apologies for all of the wokeification you've done to a lot of your content. But that is a step in the right direction, actually having some self-awareness for once. And now here's this. Ryan Graves is a former pilot. He's the founder and executive director of Americans for Safe Aerospace. That's the first military pilot-led nonprofit dedicated to unknown or unidentified aerial phenomenon as a matter of national security, aerospace safety, and science. He joined Joe Rogan to discuss what he makes of all of these mysterious drones all across the country.
You wanted to talk to me about this drone situation, and I've become very concerned. I don't understand what's going on. I think there's a bunch of different narratives. Some of them are very scary. The scariest one that I've heard is that the drones are looking for gamma radiation because there's a missing nuke.
Yeah, let's address that first.
Please.
So there has been a lot going on. I made a next post about this yesterday to try to assuage some fears. So
I saw it, but I purposely didn't read it because I wanted to get it from you.
Yeah. So, I've had the privilege of interacting with a lot of government organizations over the past few years as I've been digging down this rabbit hole. Law enforcement at a federal level, DOD, executive branch, legislative branch, and some of the folks that I've come in contact with, they specifically work on weapons of mass destruction. Okay, so that's their job. So if there's a loose nuke in the United States, among other agencies, they would be some of the people that would be sitting in a skiff for 24 hours a day trying to figure out where it is and to go get it, right? And so you can imagine that would be their number one priority, right? So I engage with these folks. I ask them, what's the sense here? People are kind of starting to panic a little bit, and this message is getting out there more and more broadly. And they assured me that's not the case, that there is not a loose nuke or other type of weapon of mass destruction that these objects, whatever they are pursuing right now. Otherwise, they would be working in a skiff nonstop to make that go away, that problem go away. So, that's part of why I have a high confidence level that this is not a response to a massive imminent, weapons of mass destruction threat on the eastern seaboard. So I just want to try to dispel that rumor right now. I've seen a lot of talk of that online, and I don't, although this is I think a dangerous and scary situation that's going on right now, at least from that particular angle, that's not the indications I'm receiving.
So how would they persuaded you? Just by saying that's not the case? Or have they given you any information that leads to this conclusion? Like,
they would be the people actively working it. essentially, right? So
And they're not.
They're not working it, right? So either the government is holding back that secret from the direct resources within the government that are responsible for finding these systems, or they're not working the issue because there isn't an issue there to work.
So the thing that I had heard was that it was a missing nuke from Ukraine. And if that was the case, what could they do? Is there any truth to this idea that we have the type of drone capability that we could send these things out and they would search for gamma radiation and they'd be able to find a nuke? Is that?
So there are teams that respond to those types of potential emergencies, typically within the Department of Energy. Having potentially hundreds of drones flying around trying to identify these isn't necessarily the best way. Gamma radiation is typically well shielded in weapons, and at very high altitudes or even moderate altitudes, like we're seeing these objects, it would be pretty difficult to detect them. And the way that NIST, the DOE, typically operates in this environment is ground-based teams searching for radiation itself. So it's not necessarily consistent with how they would do it to begin with. And then based off of that other information, that's what leads me to believe that's not the case.
Well, that makes me...
That is Ryan Graves, former Air Force pilot and now leading the nonprofit Americans for Safe. He's former Navy pilot, now executive director and founder of Americans for Safe Aerospace. That's a watchdog group dedicated to studying unknown or unidentified aerial phenomenon for national security, aerospace safety, and science. Saying to the best of his knowledge, speaking to somebody who would know, he does not suspect these mysterious drones are looking for fissile material or radioactive material. That's good news. Now, this entire drone story, I've wanted to tap out on it multiple times, but it just keeps sucking me back in. The latest things that sucked me back in is that there are legitimately a lot of officials locally on up to statewide offices in New Jersey who are apoplectic right now with the lack of response they're getting from the federal government or any authorities whatsoever about what these drones are. There are officials, elected officials, who have said, I've seen them myself. This is not normal activity. What the heck is going on? So it's not a nothing burger of a story. I don't know if it goes all the way up to necessarily what this guy was just disabusing us of, which was they're trying to sniff for radioactive. They're trying to sniff for gamma radiation. I don't think it's necessarily something like that, but there's something weird is going on. Something is not right. And finally, lastly, before this final episode of this year on the AM Update is over, I want to share with you something I stumbled across last year, which is a rendition of my favorite Christmas carol. That is about the best rendition I have ever heard, and I want to tell you why in just a little bit. This is O Come All Ye Faithful, and it appears that this was shot on a camcorder. Now, this is from the account Linwood Jordan on YouTube. Not a huge account, just barely over 1,000 subscribers. And this is the Cumming, Georgia First United Methodist Church, their chancel choir, the Lambert High School Chorus, the Forsyth Central High School Chamber Choir, chamber orchestra, brass, and pipe organ. That's what you're about to hear. And this is from December 18th of 2012. Again, this recording is 12 years old, looks like it was shot on a camcorder. And what you're about to hear is, in my estimation, not only one of the best arrangements and renditions, but one of the best recordings of O Come All Ye Faithful. Listen to this, the Cumming, Georgia First United Methodist Church. That is the Cumming, Georgia First United Methodist Church with the most angelic rendition of O Come All Ye Faithful that I have ever heard. Just heavenly. Really incredible. I mean, that choir had to be 75, 100 members strong, from 10 years old up to octogenarians. Just incredible, incredible stuff. That's my favorite Christmas carol. I get goosebumps every time that I listen to that. And you may know now why I mentioned that this looks like it was shot on a camcorder. Because if that's the quality of recording that you got off of a camcorder, just imagine what it was like in person. So anyway, that'll do it for the final episode of 2024 on the AM Update. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming along on this ride. And there is a dedicated, we are small, but we are dedicated group of loyal listeners, and I appreciate each and every one of you. You make this little project worth doing, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Have a very blessed and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you again in the new year. Hopefully there's nothing between now and I think January 3rd that warrants a new episode, or January 6th, I think is when I'll come back. But if there is, I will be here. Otherwise, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you on the other side.